A very warm welcome to you all. Our guest tonight is Alisha Hingun. She is a lecturer in the marketing field and marketing research. Alisha has also recently published her first book, Rebranding Yourself, along with her sister Zafira Hingun. During this episode, we are going to learn more about Alisha, her passion for writing, and her first book. Alisha, thank you so much for joining us in the studio of the MBC.
My pleasure, Kyle.
Alisha, you've recently written a book, Rebranding Yourself, along with your sister. What is the book all about and what motivated you to write it?
Well, it was part of the process because I was doing my PhD. So at first I was writing, but not with the aim of publishing a book. I was doing a PhD on the influences of branding on human identity. And I had so much information that at some point in time, I decided that I had to filter the information. I couldn't write everything in my thesis, so I had to find an alternative way to continue my writing. So this is where the book started. But it kind of took shape years later, actually. It took me some years to write the book.
What pushed you to publish it then?
It was my sister. So actually, she, in the last year, joined me for writing this book. And at some point, I was so tired myself because I was focusing on my thesis. And she was telling me, but this writing that you're doing in parallel is actually taking the shape of a book. So I could actually help you. And she actually considered my writing as being a little bit too academic with too much technical terms. So she was saying that maybe you should, simplify the text. So she helped me in that process, adding poems on her own. And then together as well, we wrote a little bit about our lives. And then finally, it took the shape of this book that is now published under the name of Rebranding Yourself. But it was her, basically, that pushed me for publishing.
Okay, and what drew you to write about the consumer behavior? That's the main theme of the book, right?
Yeah, but basically because it's my field. I've been doing my PhD in branding, but my background, my educational background, I started my degree and then my master in the marketing field. I was always fascinated by marketing. I don't know why. Maybe because, it's all about psychology as well. But in Mauritius, I don't think that when I was in college, I had any idea of what could be done in this field. So maybe my idea of what I could do with marketing was related to psychology because I loved it. And then afterwards, I started to work in the marketing field, marketing research field. So there's a lot of research on consumer behavior. So I worked in a field where we had to deal with studying consumer behavior. And then logically it followed into my PhD afterwards.
Do you feel that marketing is an evolving field now?
Yes, there's lots of things that's changing because the consumer is now online. It's not just traditional media being directed towards them. They're also empowered because you have a digital platform. And then, of course, you have different trends now coming up. You have even the social media platforms are changing. You have the new generation, the Generation Z, that is very different from others. So yes, lots of things happening in this field.
Alisha, how was the experience of writing this book with your sister? Is this the first time that you've collaborated with her for your work?
Yes, it's the first time we're publishing a book, actually. So the first time we've been working together. Well, not really the first time working together because she's been following me a little bit in the first few years of her career. When I was starting to work, I was in the marketing research field and she was still a student. So she kind of, had some job placement with me in the marketing research agencies I worked for. But after that, she chose her own field. But yes, it is the first time we are actually writing a book together. It was a challenge in itself because she's married and she has, her family to look after. So I had to go from work to her place every evening at some point when we were finishing the book to write things. And there was a lot of brainstorming that we had to do together. So a lot of teamwork Yes.
Took you 4 years, right, to complete it?
Yes, the core content actually it was three years because this was part of my thesis, and then after the third year where I had to collaborate with my sister, that actually was completed in 4 years.
But you both always liked to write.
Yeah, she's more like she likes actually she's a blogger in her company. She writes corporate stories, but related to because she's in the tourism sector. But I'm more into storytelling. But yeah, she's more like she likes to write in prose, and I'm a little bit into storytelling. So we mixed our style, and it gave that the book.
Alisha, share with us your creative process while writing the book. What was your source of inspiration, and did you have any particular audience while writing the book?
Well, first, when I was writing, actually, it was a filtering process. So at first, I was into this whole initiative of trying to see what I want to do, that I would love to do, because when you started this, you know that's going to be in this field for the coming 3-4 years. So I had to choose something I like. So this was the first part, and then filtering information, because in the first year you really don't know what you will be writing specifically. So you're reading a lot. So I was reading a lot of articles, academic publications, past research conducted in various countries. But I already chose the field. I wanted to do something on branding. But as I told you, I like psychology. So I really wanted to do something in psychology. So consumer behavior, since it's related to psychology, interested me. So I started digging. And in the first year, actually, I was really filtering information. And in my thesis, actually, I had to focus on empirical research. So I couldn't really focus on the unconscious part of the self, which is what a major part of my book is about, the unconscious self. So we have this social self that we portray to everybody, but this part that we don't disclose to people. But I couldn't measure that in my thesis. There's a lot of research, a field of research in psychology that actually discuss this dimension. For example, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud. So these are the founders. But I couldn't insert that in my thesis. So I started thinking that maybe this part I could keep it for later.
Yeah.
So this is like the second year of my writing started to focus on like demarking what I would be writing in my thesis, and I started to write in parallel. So this is the second year, and the third year was actually demarking the sections. So what would be on branding, what would be on psychology, and what would be of value to the consumer. So you asked me what would be my audience. Because I'm a lecturer, I'm also interacting with students, so the Generation Z, and because they were my target audience, to the population of study for my thesis, a lot is about them as well in the research I conducted. But after that, when I started writing, the book started to take a different direction. It was more for the audience that would actually understand basically what would be marketing, and then what they want to do with it. Let's say this audience wants to really discover about their inner self. They want to grow. So this is an audience that would really appreciate a self-help book to help them, evolve. It's a lot about self-development in the professional arena as well as in the personal arena.
And it reflects the title in that sense.
Exactly.
Tell us more about the title, Rebranding Yourself. How did you come up with that?
Actually, it was about something that would have to do with branding, but I didn't want to. Actually, it was about unbranding yourself. I wanted to use this term, but it is not a term that exists. So unbranding yourself for me would have been something that would be more appropriate, because I wanted to show the audience that you can go without brands and you can discover yourself from within. But since it's not a word, so I had to use rebranding yourself, because it's actually it's more used in the corporate field, where companies would say, okay, we're going to follow a rebranding strategy and we want to change our name and icons and colors, etc. So it reflected a bit the vision of what I had for the book, trying to get readers to reflect on what they are right now as a consumer, and then trying to get them to think from within what they are, what are their values, and what made them buy things. So that's why rebranding yourself.
Okay. And you have structured your book by adding poems and some personal experiences. Do you feel that in that way it helps the readers to connect in a much better way with the book and with the theme or what you're trying to convey?
Yes, this is actually what my sister was telling me from the third year when she started reading the content. There was this, she told me actually, that's her words, that there was this connection that we needed to create with our readers, and it had to come from within us as well. Since we are trying to tell a story that would bring the reader for self-reflection, we had to start to tell them what it is about us that made us write this book. So this is how the stories came. So we had to write stories, and it came from stories from our own personal lives. So various points in our lives where we had been in contact with brands, and also poems. So she writes in prose, so she actually pushed me a little bit in that direction. But it was fascinating because we were writing one sentence together, the other one it was a brainstorming, and then she would actually write another sentence. So we would be complementing our writings like this.
You were both very organized then.
Yeah,
when it comes to
came
writing.
out, it had to be very well planned. I had, for the organization, that was me, because I'm a little bit into the planning part. But yes, there was a lot of planning. We had to have a structure in place. And for example, each chapters close with a poem. So I knew from the start when we started collaborating that there had to be 10 poems in all, and a story at the beginning. So this had to be planned, yes.
Mm-hmm. Alisha, people interact with brands in a way similar to how they interact with other people. Share with us how the behavior of people has been influenced by the brands they interact with.
Well, actually, we probably don't consciously see what is happening because there are a lot of subliminal advertising happening. So in the book, we actually encourage readers to reflect on how brands are interacting with us in a way that is more or less like people. We become attached to our favorite brands, and sometimes we don't really know how much we won't be able to live without them, right, in a way of speaking. And it is very true sometimes when we actually look at our, let's say, clothing, the food that we eat, and if we look at how we are buying things, the way that we are going to see our leisure activities out there, probably we do not think consciously that these brands are shaping the way we behave, because we are not in the process of buying when we are, let's say, watching a movie, for example. So, for example, there are brands being placed in our entertainment, and we are more vulnerable because in this process we are not really, our defenses are not really on, because here we are relaxed and we are not going to process it right away. But when we're going to buy something, so you're going to subconsciously think, oh, I've watched that in this particular movie. This actor, this celebrity was using that. So we have influences as well. I'm pretty sure everybody now is following somebody on social media. So they not consciously push the brand. They wear it. Yeah. They use it. So when we look at people we admire using particular brands, it's called endorsement actually. So it's very, very strong as a way of pushing a brand forward. I'm not saying it's a wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that the consumer is less aware, and therefore they have less, let's say, they are more vulnerable and prone to buy things in this way. So
In that sense, we lose our own identity, we can say, right?
Yeah, at some point, brands actually, the old brand literature will tell you they align with your values. This is what the theory says. But the thing is, if you look deeper, there are some celebrities out there that's, you know, they will be wearing brands and they are going to have their own sets of values. And when you look at somebody, when you look up to somebody, when you are inspired by somebody, what is happening is that you are not aligning your values. You are pushing forward or you're pushing up your values so that you want to be like them, isn't it? So what is happening for me, from my perspective, is that now brands are shaping your values. So what you want to be, who you want to be, is actually being influenced or directed or guided in some way. Again, it's not wrong inherently if the consumer realizes that they have the power because they are the consumer. And marketing, it works like this. It's about demand, right? So this is this is the message, actually, the core message of the book. It's to realize your power as a consumer.
Do you feel that social media plays a major role in shaping the different types of buyers?
Yes, social media is very, very powerful because we have different types of advertising moving forward. We have now influencers that would actually be pushing, like I said, in a little bit more discreetly, brands that would be shaping your purchasing patterns. And then you have different type of consumers as well. Some would be the rational consumer, you know, they will always have their list with them, the pre-planned buyers, the budget seekers. And then some would be very impulsive. So they will be following the trend and they would actually say, no, I don't want that. But when they go in the point of sale, they will actually buy it. Or at the end of the month, they will say, okay, now I have the money, so I can buy whatever I want. So the impulsive consumer is actually more at risk.
In that way, can it help to build brand loyalty then? How is brand loyalty actually formed?
Brand loyalty is one of the key, if you want, it's a gold in the industry, because once you have loyalty to your consumers, you don't have to push your sales. They're going to come to you. So what happens with brand loyalty is when you create something that is of value for your consumer, but you add to the core product, meaning that, let's say you have different competitors out there and everybody is selling the same thing. Let's say I want to buy a phone. A phone is a phone at the end of the day. But the thing is, when you are going to add, if you want to add loyalty, brand loyalty to this core product, you have to add other things around it, the augmented product, or there are what we call the hedonic attributes. You have the emotional attributes that would be attached to it. So you create the experience. So you have the core product and the consumer says, okay, when I buy it, I'm not just buying the core product, I'm buying whatever is around it. So the status, the image, the experience, so everything that is around it will create this loyalty. And of course, it is also about customer service. It is also about the atmosphere when you go into a point of sale. So all this will bring the loyalty.
Alisha, it's easier to know how to influence consumers' behavior when you know about consumer trends. I mean, 10 years ago, there was a different trend. The consumer had different taste to what they have now. What are the current consumer behaviors now?
Well, yes, of course, 10 years ago, we didn't even have online shopping that would be so common now. After the pandemic, we've seen there is a real shift in consumer behavior. Now, maybe we have to wait a little bit more after the pandemic because people are really changing in the way they're buying things. Actually, I think it's a good thing because people have been able to be on their own for self-reflection. And I think some things are very obvious, like there has been a strong demand for sports equipment recently. Maybe this is because people were confined in their homes and they didn't go to the gym, and they wanted now to have their own equipment. Like, for example, treadmills were in great demand. There was out of stock in any point of sale that you could imagine. And then there was people started to like gardening. So gardening became very popular recently. So you will see that these trends were not there a few years back. right? So all the gardening stuff, and there's a lot of actually malls that would be having expositions of plants, etc. So because there's a demand for that, so people are going towards different product offerings. And if you reflect on what they are asking, actually it's more towards health care products, about things that would for the well-being, you know. So there has been a shift in the market that is still going to be more and more clearer when we are going to see them buy things in the near future.
Alisha, what were the challenges that you faced while writing that book though?
Well, I had writer's block. I think like every writer, at some point I couldn't write one sentence. So there was some periods where there was a lot of stress for the thesis as well. So I had a lot of pressure to complete to respect deadlines, etc. So I didn't have any inspiration sometimes for weeks. So I was stressing even more then, because I couldn't know whether I was going to finish any one of it, whether my thesis or my book. So this was one challenge. And then in terms of information as well, because I had so much information, I didn't know how at first, in the first year especially, how I was going to structure this in a way that would actually appeal to an audience out there. So getting things out of my head into the book was a challenge in itself, because it was the first time I'm writing a book actually.
Yes.
And then yeah, because of the thesis especially, I had to balance my life at Curtin, because I was working full time when doing my thesis and writing the book, so no time at all for family life. So my parents had to be understanding, and there was a lot of support around me, thank God, and they were very, very comprehensive when I would just not go to family gatherings, missing
A lot of sacrifice.
yes,
Yeah.
a lot of sacrifice, yes. But when you have family around you that could understand that you're going through a tough time, and they're giving you the space, and I think that is what happened.
How was the response though for the book? Did it meet your expectation?
Well, it's just actually less than 1 month since we've launched. We launched it on the 1st of June, but the response was amazing actually, because there was a pre-launch, a soft launch. I started the launch at the university itself, so very strong response from the students at the university. I didn't realize that. And then when we launched the book itself, so online, there is still an online campaign going on, and lots of support from our publishers. So Édition Le Printemps was amazing. So without them, actually, I don't think that the book would have been where it is right now. And we had Inessi, who's again a partner that is supporting us. So all this actually made us realize that we are not alone. And it is really, really encouraging as new authors, new Mauritian authors, and actually it's something that I didn't realize would happen. So yes, it's motivating to know that it's well launched.
Do you plan to write a second book now?
Well, yes, it's in the pipeline, though I'm not sure whether I'm going to start writing right away this year. Probably next year I'm starting to think about the second part, if you want, of this book, and yes, why not?
We are actually drawing towards the end of this episode, but before that, let's have a look at the interview of Zafira Hingun, who collaborated with her sister Alisha for the writing of this book.
Thank you very much, Koyel. Indeed, it has been a real pleasure to work with my sister on this project. We have finally published the book, and I have contributed mainly on the poems, the lifestyle stories, and also to make the book jargon-free with less scientific terms and so on. So I will say the book is for the reader, the consumer, who will want to make a right decision when buying, who will want to make lifetime project by saving their money, their expenses, managing their expenses. So yes, it is a book which is available already on the market, and we'll be working hopefully with my sister for for another project soon.
Alisha, thank you so much for having been with us tonight. It was such a delight to have you on the set and talk about your new book.
Thank you, Koya. My pleasure.
Dear viewers, we have now come to the end of this episode. Thank you for your time. We hope to catch you next week at the same time, same channel. Have a great evening.